Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Drew Embury, and welcome to our Nology Education Series event, Sign In Securely, Safe Ways to Track Your Passwords. We found there's a lot happening in the technology industry, and it can be very overwhelming to business people. So we hope these sessions can bring some clarity to some of the different technology buzzwords that are being used in the industry today, and give you some takeaway value that you can take back to your personal or business life. Just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Drew Embury, and I'm a partner here at P&L Technology. My role is to set the technical direction for our company and clients and help you get the most out of your technology investment. So I'm really excited for this topic today, and we've got a fairly strong attendance here, which I think speaks to the relevance and interest in this topic. So here's an overview of how this is going to work. This is a listen-only event, and it will be recorded. We know everybody is busy, and we're going to commit to a 30-minute maximum time for this event. We'll divide up the 30 minutes into about 20 minutes for presentation and 10 minutes for question and answers at the end. If you have questions, please use the chat function to send them in, and we will save some time at the end to address as many as we can. Following the session, we'll show you what our next webinar is going to look like and see if you'd be interested in learning more about that topic. You'll also be receiving an email at the end of this webinar that will contain a short survey. Please take a second to fill that out and let us know what you thought. It'll help us make future sessions more informative. So we hope you find this session valuable and helpful to your business. So what are we going to cover today? Well, what we're talking about is the trouble with passwords. So to give a little background, the web and all of its sorted services that it offers us have really become fixtures in our lives. Think of all the things we do online. We do our banking online. We manage our retirement and investment accounts. We pay all our bills online, whether they're with a credit card or with a service like PayPal. We buy everything under the sun, if you're like me, from Amazon and have it shipped to your home in 2 days for free using Amazon Prime. We use Facebook to keep in touch with family and friends. We check email for both business and personal. You get the picture. I could go on and on. Typically, however, all those services require a username and password, which can be pretty difficult to remember. And as a result, most people resort to some really bad habits, which can put their personal information at risk and even worse, create big headaches if those websites and those services we talked about are breached. And then can cause a lot of damage and frustration. A lot of damage if those sites are breached, and then a lot of frustration when we forget our passwords and we can't get logged into those sites. So what are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about why passwords are important. We're going to talk about why it's likely you're taking quite a bit of risk with your current password system. We're going to talk about why doing it right, the right way, is so hard. And then we're going to get into the interesting part on talking about how a technology like a password manager can help. And we're actually going to demo live a password manager program just so you can see for yourself how it works. They're not too complex, but they're pretty eye-opening when you actually see them in action. Okay, so why are passwords so important? Well, they secure all those services that we just talked about that we rely on and enjoy and have become such part of our lives we don't know how we live without them anymore. But the trouble is, if the passwords aren't secure, anybody who discovers or gets access to those passwords via a number of different means can get into your sites that you use and really wreak havoc. When I say wreak havoc, it could be anything from private communications exposed, business secrets leaking out, business communications leaking out, bank accounts drained in some even worse scenarios, identities stolen, and really more. So why you're likely taking risk is most people that we work with are typically doing one or more of the following things. They're using passwords that are too simple. So when I say passwords that are too simple, they're simple English words, maybe the word apple or one of their kids' names or their favorite sport. I've seen the password baseball or the password football. Or very, very short passwords. I had one client that was using the name Alex, which was his kid's name, as a password. Well, that's just, first of all, it's too short. Second of all, it's his kid's name. It would be very, very simple for really anybody to guess that. So when we talk about passwords, it does make sense to just talk a little bit about what are good practices for passwords. Well, really, the longer the better is the first thing. We recommend it typically at least 8 to 10 characters if possible, and then either integrating some uppercase and some lowercase, some numbers and some symbols into that password to make it harder to guess and to make it harder for automated password tools that we're going to talk about in a little bit to guess those passwords. So the reason why we need complex passwords, it makes sense to discuss really briefly how hackers compromise passwords. Well, most of them use very simple tools that can really try common passwords over and over again. So, for example, they'll go to a website, they'll use your email address, which they may have found through just any way your email address can get out there, and then they'll try those simple passwords. They'll try every 5-word word in the English language over and over and over again until they get a hit. The other way that passwords are even more commonly breached is the hackers will find some way to get into the website and get a list of the password database. Now, the password databases are almost always encrypted, but because they have the encrypted password, what they will do is take a dictionary of the English word, they'll encrypt every one of those, and then they'll compare it to the password database to see if they get any hits. So when you see these big leaks of LinkedIn or Twitter or those kinds of things with those accounts becoming available online, and you see those stories in the news, that's typically what happened. Is the hackers broke in, they stole somehow the encrypted password database, and then they ran some what we call reverse engineering or brute force attacks on those passwords to be able to get those. So I'd like to show you something here real quick. I'm going to share my screen. Now you should be seeing my screen. It might take just a moment to come up, and you're going to see a website that says, "How secure is my password?" So I'm going to go ahead and basically just type in the word Apple. And there you see your password would be cracked instantly. So when it means cracked, that means the second scenario I talked about where the hackers have stolen the password database from a common website, and they've anybody who had the password Apple, that's going to be just cracked almost instantly. So just to illustrate how we can make our passwords more difficult, I'm going to do Apple with a capital E, and then I'm going to put a couple of numbers behind it, 1, 3, 5. So there you see a little bit better, but still not great. Now it's going to take only 2 hours to crack that password. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to type a longer password. I'm going to do purple, 5, monkey, 7, wash. So there you see, not all that difficult of a password for a human to remember, but there you see now it would take about 294 billion years for that password to be cracked. So this website isn't perfect, but it's a pretty good approximation of what we're trying to illustrate here, that we need to have longer passwords that have a mixture of uppercase and lowercase and characters and things like that in them. So I thought that was fairly interesting there. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what makes up a good password and why we need good passwords. Well, the other risk that people are commonly taking, in addition to having passwords that are too simple, too short, too easy to guess, is they're using the same password on multiple websites. So if you think about that scenario we just talked about, where the hackers have gotten into an online service you use, it may not even be one that is that important to you or you use very often, or something maybe you just are an online retailer where you bought something from once, but you use the same username and password that you use all over the internet. So what they're going to do then is get those compromised passwords using the tools. Because you had a short password, they're going to probably instantly be able to recover that. And they're going to say, okay, this guy had a password at this online retailer. I'm going to try that at the top 100 sites around the internet. They're going to go to Facebook and try it. They're going to go to Wells Fargo, maybe that's your bank, and try it. And they're not even really going to sit there and just type it in. They've got automated scripts where they're going to feed in a big list of compromised username and passwords, and the automated tools that they've developed are going to go around and try those and just report back to them which hits are back. So Now unwittingly you've taken a password that you've used at a retailer that has very little risk to you, but because you reuse that at Facebook and your online banking and your investments and all those things, those accounts are likely going to fall very rapidly. So the way to avoid this is to use a different username and password, or not necessarily a different username, but a different password at each site that you work on. The third way that we find people that are likely putting themselves at risk is, in one or more ways, is writing down their passwords on a piece of paper. So they write down all their passwords on a piece of paper, and then they leave it around their home or their office, which, that can work well. You can potentially then have more complex passwords, and you can have different passwords, but if you haven't written down on a piece of paper, what could happen to that piece of paper? Maybe you have a disgruntled coworker that gets in your desk and finds that piece of paper that has all of your logins on it, whether they're personal or business. Maybe your kids have friends over and they end up getting that. We don't always approve of our kid's friend. Or maybe it's just lost or stolen. Maybe you lose it. Maybe it gets damaged. Spilled something on it and you can't read it anymore. So now all those passwords are gone and not available to you. Another thing about using it on the piece of paper is then, what if you're not at home? What if you're traveling? What if you're at office and you need to check a personal site, or vice versa? Now your password's at the office and you're really not able to work very effectively. So typically we see people using one or two or maybe even all three of these bad habits, which really puts them at a pretty significant risk. So, usually when I give a presentation like this, people start to say, okay, Drew, you've won me over, I believe you, but now I've got 100 different passwords. They're all super complex. There's no way I can remember them, and you told me I can't write them down, so what am I supposed to do? So, obviously that's kind of where what we're going to talk today, and we're going to show you how using technology can solve the issue. So I'm going to switch now back to screen sharing mode, and I'm going to show you an example of how a password manager works, how it can automate your password management. We're going to be using a tool today called 1Password, which is not the only password manager, but it's one of my favorites that I've used. All right, I'm going to give it just a second here. Everybody should be seeing my screen now, where I've got a Google web browser open here. So what we're going to do first is I'm just going to show you the 1Password interface. So I've got 1Password loaded on my computer here, and you can see that's this little circle down here. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So basically now it's opened up a 1Password into my 1Password manager here. And the first thing I want to show is basically logins. So this is basically a list of logins that I have in the system, and for all the different websites that I use. And you can also organize them by folder. So you can see right here over to the left, I've got my work folder open. And then I've got basically my all folder, which includes my work things, but it also has a lot of my personal logins. So you can see just on the list here, I probably have 30 or 40 in there. I probably have double or triple that even in my personal. So I probably have 200 or 300 different usernames and passwords here. A couple of other things that 1Password can do, not only storing your username, your websites, and your passwords, it can also store what's called my identity. So here you see my identities, and I've got one there. And there you see my name, and it's my personal identity. So I'll just go ahead and edit that, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here's where I put my name, my first name, last name, my company, my home address, my phone number, my email, all those kinds of things. And this is going to be useful later when we need to fill out forms automatically on the web. So the important thing to understand about identities is you can have multiple identities. You can have a home identity. You can have a work identity. Maybe you work with a nonprofit, as a board member or something like that. You could have an identity for that, and then you can use that to automate some of your work on the web, which we'll demonstrate in just a minute. Another feature here is credit cards. So here you see Wallet, and I've got basically my business credit card and some personal credit cards in here. I'm not going to edit that because I don't want to expose my credit card numbers on the webinar here today, but they would have spots for my credit card numbers, expiration dates, the security codes, and all the things that go along with a credit card. So that's kind of just basically how 1Password is organized. So let's go ahead and show it in action. I think that'll be much more useful now. So I'm going to flip over now. I'll just go ahead and minimize. Flip over to Chrome. And I'm just going to go ahead and go to Facebook. So I'll go to facebook.com. And here you see it brings up the Facebook page. So I obviously already have a Facebook account. Here you see it's asking for my email and my phone number, or my email and my password. So what I'm going to do is use 1Password now to handle that. I've already got my Facebook username and password put into 1Pass. And I'm just going to go to the little 1Pass icon here, which you see me hovering over. And it's up by the little star here. And I'm going to click that. And here you see it already has a login for my Facebook saved. So I'm just going to click that. So you see there how it automatically filled in my username and my password, and there it logged me in automatically. So now I'm into Facebook, and I've got logged in. So I didn't have to remember my username and password, and I didn't have to go to an application and look it up and copy and paste or anything like that. It automatically filled the form out for me. And really, this can follow me really all over the web. So let's see another example of that, or how we can use it really further. So this time I'm going to go to a consumer site. I'm just going to go to jcrew.com. I like to order pants and shirts from jcrew. So although I'm showing you a consumer site, this would completely apply to business as well. So I'm just going to go to the men's department. Let's see here. I'll go to shirts. That one looks nice. And I'll add that to my bag. And let's see here. Oops. I don't think I was a little impatient, waited. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the checkout, and we'll see how Password Manager can help here. So now we'll go ahead into checkout now. And if I had to log in, I could log into jcrew here. But at this point, I'm going to check out as a guest just so you can see the form filling. So we probably see this on the websites all the time, right? We're placing an order for a business purchase, or we're ordering something, and we have to provide our information. And we've got to type all that stuff in, and who wants to do that? So I'm again going to go up here to the 1Password feature, and I'm going to go down to Identities, and I'm going to choose my personal identity that I showed you earlier. Now watch this. See how it filled out my first name, my last name, it filled out my address, my apartment number, my zip code, my city, state, and I put my phone number in there. So you can see in repetitive things how much time that can save. In the same token, I'm a business and I'm placing an order for something, or I'm ordering something personally. I'm going to get to the point here where I'm going to need my credit card now. Again, I can do the exact same thing. I can go up here. I can select credit cards. I can choose the one I want. Now, again, I'm not going to do this because it would put my numbers in there, but that would fill out my credit card number, my security code, my expiration date, and my name. So a real slick way then to fill out the credit card features. So that's just kind of a taste at how 1Password can automate websites. So I could basically go to any one of the 200 or 300 sites that I have accounts on, log into them instantly without having to remember my username and password, and I could fill out forms and pay for things using credit cards automatically without having to do really a whole lot of work. A couple of other interesting features is there's also this secure notes field. So this is really good for creating secure notes. So for example, maybe I've got a PIN number for my ATM card. Most people don't have a big deal remembering that, but I'm going to put it in here just so there's no chance I'm going to remember it. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and create a new item, and I'll do a secure note, and I'll put my ATM PIN reminder, and let's say my PIN is 6712. We'll just make one up. So now I've stored that reminder, and we can see down there that it's 6712, and that's a great reminder of kind of what's going on there. that I can look up at any time. So that's great. We've shown how to automatically fill out forms. We've shown how to pay for things, to automatically log in. A couple of other things that I'd like to mention is you don't necessarily have to get a password manager and then spend a whole bunch of time automatically putting in all the usernames and passwords for all your different sites. All you really have to do is start the password manager and then start visiting the sites that you're interested in visiting. So, for example, if I wouldn't have already been to Facebook, the first time I log in, 1Password is going to pop up and it says, hey, it looks like you're logging into Facebook. Would you like to save this username and password in the password manager? I choose yes, and it's automatically stored it in there for me. So the takeaway for that is it's really easy to get started. You just have to go to the password manager, start it, and start using it. Another great feature of 1Password is, and I'm going to go back to my logins here. If I click New Item, you'll notice here there's also a password feature. So if I'm creating a new account somewhere, I'm going to a new website that I haven't visited before and I need a password, I'll just click the password button. And here you see it's given me a very nice complex password. Now, you're going to have no shot of ever remembering that, nor would this even be easy to type in if you had it written down. But that is an excellent password, as you can see here. And then I can take and just copy and paste that into my website as I'm creating those new things. 1Password then will automatically remember it, and I'll have a nice secure password for that website and a different password than I use on other sites. Okay, so we've really shown the basic features of 1Password. That's really what it's designed to do, or any other password managers. So the beauty of this now is that this is a very mobile application. So I not only have this on my work PC, I have it on my home PC, and I have it on my smartphones and my tablets and my work laptop. So I put a password in on one. I've got it set up to synchronize, and it's going to send it within a few seconds to all my other devices. So that way I'm home and I'm trying to catch up on some work. Hey, I've got all my work passwords for all the websites I need to log into. I'm traveling. I'm in a different country, and I need to do something online. I need to transfer some funds from my bank to pay for something. Who knows what my bank password is? I didn't remember it. Hey, I've got it right here. It's on my smartphone. I can log in and take advantage of that. So that's really then where the use really starts to improve. Okay, so we've shown 1Password in action. At this point, we want to just talk about some other popular password managers. So my favorite is 1Password. I've used basically all three of these here. I've used Keepass and 1Password extensively. Lastpass I really haven't used a whole lot, but I know it's popular. 1Password is my favorite. One of the downsides is it's not free, unfortunately. It is $5 a month and or $64.99 a year. Not a year. I'm sorry, one-time purchase just to purchase it. So fairly inexpensive, especially for the amount of time savings and security. You know, if you ever get compromised by using some of the poor practices we talked about earlier, the $64.99 is certainly going to look like a huge bargain. Then I put the URLs in here as well, 1password.com, or you can just Google it. Lastpass is another very popular one. That one's a little bit less expensive. It's $12 a year, and that's and again another very popular password manager, Lastpass.com. Another one I've used is called Keepass. It's free. I personally found it less friendly. It's a very good password locker, but I found some of the auto form fill and some of the auto type and auto password entry that we showed earlier on 1Password doesn't work as well. But it is a free option, so if you needed just to set one up for work to share amongst your team to keep your passwords, that might be a good option for that. It just won't have maybe quite the automation features that some of the others will have. Okay, we're at about 25 minutes now, so I definitely want to transition now into if there are any questions and answers. So let me look here. All right, so we have a question. So if someone were to figure out how to log into my computer, they would just be able to go to any site and use the 1Password link or icon to fill in passwords and have access. That's a really good question, and actually the answer to that is no. I have it set up for mine when I log into Windows securely using my Windows password. It automatically unlocks 1Password for me. That's just the way I have it set up. The default, though, is actually to require a password to get into 1Pass. Now, I know that's a little ironic, but now you're just remembering 1Password to log into 1Password, and then everything else is there for you. So that will be the default. If you install it, it's going to ask you for a password. Don't forget that password, because if you do, it will be unrecoverable. But judging by that question, I'll talk just a little bit about how 1Password works. It puts a file on your computer that's your password vault, so to speak. That file is heavily encrypted and then secured by the password to your password vault. So the first time you open 1Password, you log in with the password, you have all that access that we showed. If somebody then gets onto your computer and they don't have your 1Password password, all that's going to be worthless to them. So that's a very good, very, very good question. Another question, we've got a lot of questions here. Do password managers like 1Password continually update their own security? Are there instances of their database being breached by hackers? Are they generally considered to be extremely safe? Another really good question. Obviously, you're putting all this stuff in there. You want to make sure it's safe. And yes, basically all three of those products are constantly updating their own background and security. I actually feel extremely good about this. In the IT world, I can never say for sure anything's 100% because that's just not the world we live in. But the type of encryption that they use, those developers, even if they wanted to get access to your things, they couldn't for two reasons. One is that file, that your password vault, is stored on your computer. They don't even have access to that. Two, it's encrypted using extremely robust encryption. So even if somebody did get a copy of your password vault, it's going to be pretty difficult for them to get in there and use that. So definitely always something to keep in mind. But they've really thought through these things well, where even people that are very paranoid about security and very adept at security, for the most part, will trust these applications. And I guess another good point to make is even though there is always a small risk with running something like a password manager, it's so much better than the alternative that we talked about earlier today, using simple passwords, reusing them, writing them down, things like that. Let's see here. Another person asked, can you share one set up with a spouse? Yes, absolutely. And that's actually a great point. Not just a spouse, but also in business, your team. A lot of people have to share passwords with a team. There's a team of people that have to use the website and the passwords. And as we know, a lot of websites force us to change our passwords periodically. So what happens is one team member changes it, and either they email it out, which that's not a great idea because now it's in the email system for anybody that stumbles across the email to read. Somebody else doesn't know what it is then, and there's always questions, hey, what's this password? I'm sure you guys experience that all the time. Start a password locker in your company. Put the things in there that the team members need. You can have different password vaults for different teams, and then you will maybe not have a lot of those challenges that you had before. How do these integrate with devices, phones, and tablets? Was the next question. Very well. So I downloaded just the 1Password app from the App Store. I have an iPhone, but there's an Android app as well. And I set it up to open my 1Password vault that I had put in a Dropbox account. And I basically got full access to do everything that I just showed you on my PC. I can open websites, I can log in automatically, I can look up my ATM PIN code that I stored in there. I can really do everything that I've done. Let's see here. Another person asked, do I need to create a stronger password at each site before storing it in 1Password? That's a great question. that would certainly be what I would call best practice. So here's what I did when I started using a password vault, is I set it up and I just let it start capturing all my username and passwords that I use already, creating a record. The next step I did was go to my most important websites, my banks, my investments, my things that I was more worried about than others. And I used 1Password's ability to auto-generate those really long passwords that I showed you earlier, and I just changed them one by one. You know, you could sit down in an afternoon and power through it, or you could just do it over, you know, the course of a few months. And I would just definitely recommend starting with the more important websites to you that would, you know, improve your security the most first. We've had 2 or 3 people ask, if you forget your 1Password password, is there a password recovery option? I honestly have not looked into that. I actually don't think there is, though, and the reason for that is in order for the company to give you your password, they would essentially have to have access to your data to be able to recover that. So because of the nature of a password database and it being highly secure and highly personal to that person or company, it's encrypted with that password. So that's what I was telling you earlier. That might be the one example of where you write down a password on an index card and you put it in a safe or wherever you store your personal important paperwork, and just make sure you don't forget that password. That is something I can look into offline and maybe email out to those people who ask those questions, but I'm pretty sure that that is the case. We have had a final question, and I think this is a really good one. Do they offer a feature which requires 2-factor authentication? I actually don't know the answer to this either because I haven't personally done it on 1Password. Because of the encryption, I haven't felt it really necessary because it's a file that I control and it's encrypted. However, I did think, since we're talking about passwords, it's important to talk about what 2-factor is real briefly. 2-factor is using 2 things to log into a website, and we've probably all seen this at least once, where maybe you have to log in using your username and password, and then the website or the bank or something sends you a code to your phone. Maybe they text you a code you have to type in. We're seeing those more and more, 2-factor. And a lot of times you need to turn those on. A lot of times they're not turned on by default. For your higher security services, I would recommend turning those on whenever you can find those. It does create a little bit of extra hassle when you want to go to log in to a website, and you have to have your phone with you and type in that key code. But even if you have simple passwords and you wrote them down and somebody got them, if you have 2-factor on, it's likely that you're not going to be breached. So it's also a really good takeaway for your businesses. If you do business banking online, you probably should ask your bank if they offer 2-factor. A lot of times they'll ship you a little token that has the ability to provide that text, or they make you register cell phones and send texts. We also have the ability to do 2-factor for anybody that has any Office 365 products. If you want to secure your email with 2-factor, please reach out to us. And although the webinar today wasn't about 2-factor, we had a question, so I thought we'd talk real quickly about it. Okay, I think we got to the end of our questions. I really enjoyed having you on the webinar today. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to call or email me. We'll send you this recording at the end of the event, and please pass it along to anybody you think you can benefit from the material. It's also going to be posted on our website at pltechnology.com. So we hope you enjoyed the session, and our future event is Intermediate Microsoft Excel Formulas. So this webinar is going to be for anybody who has a basic understanding of Excel formula creation and just wants to learn a little bit more. So, again, we're going to spend a half an hour, and we're going to show 3 to 4 more advanced formulas that we use in our business here quite frequently, and we think it may benefit you. So we'll show you how to create things like named ranges, how to automatically summarize data into kind of a scorecard type function, and to use a feature called index match, which allows you to join data from multiple sources into a single spreadsheet. Just things that we find people don't know how to do, but after they do, they really put it to use. So this will be September 8th, 2016 at 10 a.m. And please register at pltechnology.com/events. Very last thing before I let you get on your way today is I want to just talk a little bit about our upcoming Nology Users Conference. So if you enjoyed this webinar today, we're going to have a full day of sessions like this, actually even longer, even more in-depth, and that's November 15th, 2016. So we'll have sessions for executives and business decision makers and for frontline staff. If you've attended one of our previous 2 user conferences, we've got some new things this year. We've got more hands-on content and more intermediate to advanced sessions. So if you attended some of our basic sessions and you felt like you learned that and you're ready for the next step, we're going to have more intermediate and advanced sessions this year led by certified dedicated trainers. Our early bird pricing is ending soon, so if you're interested in this, register at pltechnology.com/conference. That's it. Appreciate you attending our webinar today. Have a great rest of the day.